Okay, welcome back to BPM 232, Buddhisms and Psychologies, or Buddhist Psychologies. And this indeed is the 12th and final lecture. As you can see, I dressed for the occasion in this particular instance. So I want to end, in a sense, as we began. So 2,500 years ago, there was an individual in India, somebody with tremendous privilege, somebody who was cushioned, coddled, protected, who nevertheless managed to cut through that privilege and to cut through that coddling to reach something fundamental, something perennial, something shared between all human beings. And he approached that problem, as they say in Zen, like somebody with their hair on fire, really came at it. And in so doing, there were a lot of blind ends. He learned a great deal. He was something of a prodigy. But nevertheless, he met failure, and in fact, nearly disastrous failure, right? Nearly drowning in a river, before he decided to sit down and pursue something simply through to its end. And in so doing, he reached an innovation. Now, that innovation, I think, in a sense, is quite remarkable. But it's also not unique. There are similar wisdoms to be found in all manner of the world's religious traditions. There is wisdom all around us, in a sense. And the tendency that we often have in the modern era is to sort of polarize that distance in time. We think 2,500 years ago, those people were, idiots. They were primitives. They didn't even have TikTok, right? They didn't know about modern sanitation. They didn't know about antibiotics. They didn't know about, space travel. They were sort of simpletons. Or the other way that we sometimes go is to say like they were, in some sense, better, right? Simpler, more rooted, more grounded, more connected, etc. But the actual truth that I want to propose here is they were no different from us. They were no different from us, right? They weren't different from us at all. They were the same as us. That's the actual thing. I once had the insight, which kind of came on me, and it had to do sort of with the passage of time. And the insight that I had was, hey, if I was to average, a human generation, let's call it 25, right? And there's an unbroken line of people that stretches back, through my father and my mother to my grandfathers and my grandmothers and so on and so forth, generation after generation. If I average that at about 25, between me and the time of Christ, so 2,000 years ago, there are 80 generations. Now, on one hand, that sounds like a lot, but in a different sense, I sort of imagined it and I thought, what that means is that every ancestor I had, a lineal ancestor, not literally every ancestor, but every lineal ancestor I had, my father to my grandfather to my great-grandfather, every lineal ancestor I had in that sense could fit inside, as I put it at the time, a crowded pub, 80 people. Now, there's a sense in which that seems very far off, and the human life seems long. You think back 30 years and it seems like a long time ago. I just did a commentary on the recent Beatles documentary, and that was, more than 50 years ago. And, people have this sense that this is like, an earlier time and so on and so forth. And in some ways that's true. But in other ways, psychologically, genetically, right, we're identical. We are precisely the same as people 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, 3,000 years ago. It's all very recent history. To put this in a little bit of context, when I was thinking about it, consider there is a breed of aphid, so like small leaf-borne insects. There's a breed of aphid whose life cycle, whose generational cycle is 4.7 days. It's very short. Which means that 80 generations of these aphids is 374 days. So it's a little over a year. And the fact is that, when we consider the grand scale of the things around us, despite the fact that they are impermanent. When we consider the grand scale of things around us, it's a blink of an eye. Our universe is 14 billion years old by current estimates. Geological strata and time, it's a blink. Now, in that blink, there's no question that remarkable things have occurred. And humans have discovered and understood, all sorts of tremendous things, right? Science and philosophy and ethics have advanced in all sorts of ways. There's been enormous understanding. If you want to sort of treat it in techno-optimist terms, you can say human beings have set foot on the moon. If you want to treat it in techno-pessimist terms, you can say human beings have left garbage on the moon. And it remains to be seen which of those two legacies is the one that we will be noted for by the raccoons or whatever that succeed us. But the point is, in many ways, it's the blink of an eye. 2,000 years, 2,500 years. These people are not better than us or worse than us. They're the same as us. They're just us. And in that, we find a certain kind of power and connection. It's not just the fact that we are fundamentally, at the end of the day, the same as each other, right? Of course, there are always questions of privilege, and there are always questions of, the in-group and the out-group, and there are always questions of socioeconomics. Those things are always true, and indeed injustices that need to be addressed. But it is also the case that beneath those differences, we have deep fundamental similarities. We have deep shared existential concerns, right? And it's in that, and in the addressing of that we find the power of the Buddha's understanding. So in coming from 2,500 years ago to now, I am reminded of the words of Ponce de Leon, who, when he was released from his imprisonment with the Inquisition and returned to the university, he walked back into the lecture hall and began his lecture, as we were saying yesterday, and that's a bit what this is like. So for today, I'm not going to go through and sort of elaborate or recap. You have access to the material. I'm not going to spend a lot of time attempting to draw sort of the hypotheticals or the parallels or the connections per se between sort of modern understanding of the mind and the alleviation of suffering or science, right? Instead, I'm going to just go through some quotes, and I'm going to do so without commentary. A number of quotes from the Buddha himself, a number of quotes from Buddhists, and then a number of quotes from non-Buddhists. And I hope that in doing this, we are making a return to some of these fundamental ideas that can resonate with you, as indeed I hope that the material in this course has resonated with you generally. As I have said from the outset, I consider it to be the sort of highest good in some sense within material when one teaches it, that it not merely be theoretical and abstract. Not that the theoretical and abstract are uninteresting to me, I like theoretical and abstract, but rather that things that we learn touch our lives in ways that are useful. And I hope that that has been the case for many of you in this class. So with that in mind, a few quotes from the Buddha, a few quotes from Buddhists, and a few quotes from non-Buddhists that I think are very much in the spirit of this material, and then I will end out. So some quotes from the Buddha, and I will simply speak them and without commentary. So I would just say, listen, what we think, we become. We are what we think. We are what arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. Thousands of candles can be lighted from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. There is nothing more dreadful than the habit of doubt. Doubt separates people. It is a poison that disintegrates friendships and breaks up pleasant relations. It is a thorn that irritates and hurts. It is a sword that kills. The way is not in the sky. The way is in the heart. The only real failure in life is not to be true to the best one knows. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. It is better to travel well than to arrive. It is better to conquer yourself than to win 1,000 battles. Then the victory is yours. It cannot be taken from you, not by angels or by demons, heaven or hell. Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. So those are quotes from the Buddha himself. In terms of quotes from Buddhists that I wanted to share in brief, Yasutani Roshi. The fundamental delusion of humanity is to suppose that I am here and you are out there. Basho. Do not seek to follow in the footsteps of the men of old. Seek what they sought. And to this, I'll add a few non-Buddhists and then a final quote. So first, as you all know at this point, I am a neo-Jungian and a great fan of Carl Jung's work. So the first is from Carl Jung. He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakes. One from John Lennon, having recently sort of done this piece on the Beatles. Life is what happens while you're making other plans. From Socrates, those who want the fewest things are nearest to the gods. From the philosopher Wittgenstein, arguably the most significant philosopher of the 20th century. And this one, I think, bears very deep contemplation, even though I said I wouldn't comment. From Wittgenstein. The mystical is not how the world is, but that it is. Okay, and one more. This is from the comedian, the late comedian, Bill Hicks. The world is like a ride in an amusement park. And when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. The ride goes up and down, around and around. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud, and it's fun for a while. Many people have been on this ride a long time, and they begin to wonder, hey, is this real, or is it just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us and say, hey, don't worry. Don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride. And we kill those people. Shut him up. I've got a lot invested in this ride. Shut him up. Look at my furrows of worry. Look at my big bank account and my family. This has to be real. It's just a ride. But we always kill the good guys who try to tell us that. You ever notice that? And let the demons run amok. But it doesn't matter, because it's just a ride. And we can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. Just a simple choice right now between fear and love. The eyes of fear want you to put bigger locks on your doors, buy guns, close yourself off. The eyes of love see all of us as one. Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defenses each year, and instead spend it feeding and clothing and educating the poor of the world, which it would pay for many times over, not one human being excluded, and we could explore space together, both inner and outer, forever in peace. So I hope you found this class interesting and edifying and a useful foundation. It has been a pleasure to teach and to interact with all of you that I've had the opportunity to meet. I know that these have been difficult months, I think, for nearly everybody. And so I can only hope that, above and beyond the bare fact of checking off a credit towards the eventual degree, which will then facilitate a future career and so on and so forth, that there was something here that you took not merely as a foundation of scholarship, but as something that might have some kind of impact on addressing this. That's what I hope. And with that note, it's been a pleasure to teach. It has been a pleasure to interact with all of you. I wish you a lovely holiday once you navigate through the end of this cold winter season and get some downtime. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.